everybody. Nice to meet you. This is Professor Jennifer Lee. Today, we're going to start our Python lecture series, starting from lesson 1. The topics for today will be learning the basics of Python, starting from Python objects, Python operators, and we'll use Jupyter Notebook throughout the lectures. So we'll start learning what functions we have on Jupyter Notebook. All right, so we're going to basically start everything by writing a note on the Jupyter Notebook. So in some places, I'll be writing some notes. In some other cases, I'll be writing the codes. So it's the most recommended if you will especially pay attention to the codes that I'm writing here. And perhaps you can follow along while I present these codes. So we'll start with Jupyter Notebook functions, and I'll introduce some keyboard shortcuts. So one thing to note, because this is a very basic class, I'll teach you with this. You can either use the edit mode on Jupyter Notebook, which usually appears in green, which is the function that I'm writing right now. When you're in edit mode, you can simply write or type Shift and Enter to run the code. However, if you'd like to add your own note next to the code, you can simply put the pound before your note so that you will let the computer know that you're not writing a code anymore. So it's just simply letting the computer know whenever you're writing that hashtags or the pound sign, you're not writing a computer code anymore, but you're just simply writing a note for yourself. We also have the command mode, which appears in blue. When you're in command mode, there are some keyboard shortcuts that I'll introduce, such as when you type in A, Notebook will understand that you want to add a cell above. B means add a new cell below. And DD means delete that cell that you're working on. And M means go back to the markdown environment, meaning go back to the edit mode. Another shortcut is the Y, which means go back to the coding environment, which appears in blue, as I just told you. And finally, H means show shortcuts. So right now, this is in the edit mode, as you can see from this green color right here. So let's say we want to go to the command mode. We can simply type Y, or I'm just typing M again so that it's coming back to the markdown environment. This keyboard shortcuts are useful. However, you can also alternately use these drop-down menu. It's really up to you, but I like to use this keyboard shortcuts. All right, and then I'll also give you some notes on the Python objects. That's the very first topic of this lesson today. So there are many different types of objects. First is called the list. List is one type of object that you can work on Python. I'll give you an example. For example, there is a list. It is called my list. I'm just giving an arbitrary name to it. Lists are always using these square brackets. So let's say these are the components of this list. Number 1, number 2. I can also include certain words like hey, or it could also include a variable such as x. One thing to note is that objects, all of these components in a list, follow a sequence. So which means the computer automatically knows that number 1 is the very first object, number 2 is the second object, so on and so forth. Having this sequence is very useful as we use the for loops in the future. So we will learn the loops function later on, but I'll just make a note here that this allows for iterations using the for loops. It might not make sense to you at this moment, but it will down the road. But just one thing to note here is that by using the list, the order, the sequence is fixed, so that using the loop function becomes a lot more handy. All right. Here's another type of Python object. It is called a dictionary. So here I'm, again, creating an arbitrary dictionary named mydic. And we always have to use these curly brackets. In dictionaries, as we've all seen in any regular dictionaries, has to have 2 objects as a combi. So, so in the dictionaries, we have the word and then the meaning assigned to that word. So it follows the same rule. So let's say in this dictionary, we have a bunch of information, including the name. The name is Jennifer, and then her age is 36. So this is an example of a dictionary, and the dictionary list can go on and on. So something to note here, when storing values in a in a dictionary, the key is specified first, followed by the corresponding value, separated by a colon. So you probably have already noticed, but we follow this rule. We write the key first, and then the value associated for that key, the second key, the value, the third key, value, so on and so forth. So that's the second type of object, dictionary. There is also something called string. So in Python, we always call any type of word using alphabets as strings. The string can be a word, the string can be a letter, it can be a sentence, it could be paragraphs. It could also be the full essay, but they have to be using alphabetical letters. Oh, actually, it doesn't have to follow the English alphabets either. It can also include some foreign alphabets as well. So what that means is it's a text data. Whenever you're indicating a string, the string data must be within these apostrophes, or it should be indicated either using this or this. So I'll just write it here. We must use either the single quotes or the double quotes. And then we also have integer type of data. They mean they're the whole number data. Or the float data, which means the non-integer but number data. It could be 1.5, 2.7. And then we also have an object called Boolean. So Boolean means it indicates a binary variable. It consists of either true or false. So I won't explain too much about the Boolean right now, but there is a separate lesson, lesson 3, that will cover this topic more in depth. I want to warn you that if you attempt to mix incompatible object types, you may encounter a type error. Whenever you're seeing an error, you cannot proceed, so you have to fix that before running other quotes. So, which means if you're using list, but using curly brackets, it doesn't make sense because Python wouldn't understand curly bracket as list. It would automatically understand that as a dictionary. So you want to avoid such situations. In order to prevent this from happening, always I recommend you to build a habit of checking the data type using the type function. So I will also cover this. I'll give you a bunch of examples later on this, but there are, in addition to the objects called types, there are also different functions, like type is one of the functions. Whatever data we put within here, it'll give us what type of object that is. It'll give us the type of object. Or there's also a print function, which will print the result of the following code. Okay, so right now I'm spending some time to write the notes, but as I said, later on, I will give you a bunch of examples. Okay, last but not the least, for now, we also have Python operators. So these include things like assign. So assigning an object to a variable, we always use this equation mark. So if we say assign female to a variable called A, we will say A equals female. So equals, whenever we want to indicate the equality, instead of using that single equation mark, we use the double equation mark. So for example, we can say 1 equals 1. So that's how we use. Not equal to will be indicated by exclamation mark and single equation mark. Also, we can do a bunch of comparisons on Python using all of these characters. So it's greater, A is greater than B, A is smaller than B, A is greater or equal to B, and so on and so forth. Another thing to note here is when a comparison is made, whenever a comparison is made, Python will return a Boolean result. So I already told you, Boolean result is either true or false. I'll give you examples of that later as well. Also, if there are exponents, which are indicated by the 2 star signs, and most of the arithmetics work, like pluses, minuses, multiply, and divisions. Okay, so now that the notes are ready, we're gonna start with the showtime. We'll actually run codes, and I'll show you a bunch of examples here. So one thing I just taught you is whenever we're using string data, meaning the text type of data, we have to use these apostrophes. So let's say we can write something like hello world. And whenever we want to run the code, shift return or shift enter. So please note that if we attempt to do that without that, it will return this syntax error. So it's not seeing that quotation mark, so that it's just throwing this error and letting us know that, no, we can't understand. The computer cannot understand that. So look for something else. All of the arithmetics work without the quotation marks. So because this is not a string type of data, it's working without the quotation marks. And as I said, most basic arithmetics work like this. The print function basically prints whatever you are trying to return. So here you can also say print the following code, and it'll print the returned code from that code, the result of that code. Of course, as you might imagine, this won't work because you have to always use either the double quotation or the single quotation for any type of string data. We learned the assign. To assign something to a variable, we can use that single equation mark. So I'm assigning this hello world sentence and naming that as the greeting, and giving that variable name greeting. So assigning will do the job, and we can print this entire object called greeting that we just assigned, and it will print the result of that code. Another function that I mentioned was the type. So we can write whatever within there and to check what type of data that we're working on. So I recommend you always to check the type of the object before seriously working on that data, so that you know what to expect and you know what rules to follow. You can also do this, like print and then write the whole equation there, and it'll again give us the result. The arithmetics don't always need that print function to print the result. So we can also do this instead. 2 to the power of 4 equals to 16. Another thing I mentioned was whenever the comparisons are made, Python returns a Boolean result, meaning the true or false. Let's see if that works. 2 is, let's ask if this is true. True is smaller than 4. Yes, that's true. Let's try the other way. 2 is larger than 4. No, it's false. So it's going to give us the Boolean result, either true or false. All right. Or I was telling you that the equality sign is not just single equation sign, it's double. So 2 equals to 2, it's probably true, yep. Or 14 plus 5 equals 20, it's probably going to say false because that's a false equation. Okay, let's assign hi to a variable named hello. And let's ask if hello actually equals to hi. And yes, it's saying that's true because hello was previously assigned a variable called hi, and we're asking if that equals to hi, and indeed that's true. So it's telling us that it's true. So Boolean is something that you will be using a lot. Like the logistics behind Boolean is really important in understanding further analysis using Python. So that's why I'm teaching you this now. You might ask, like, why are you teaching us a bunch of silly questions and to see if Python knows it or not? That's not my purpose, but my purpose is to gets your feet dirty, gets your feet wet around the Boolean, and we will for sure go over some more detailed rules behind the Booleans. But this is the first class, so I guess this is good enough. We can also write a list, 1, 2, 3, 4, that's in the square bracket. And as I said, lists always have to be within the square bracket. And let's maybe ask if that indeed is a list. It'll, by using the type function. Yes, it's gonna, let us know, yes, it is a list type of object, so everything seems to be okay. Let's create a list of some information related to myself, like my name in a short form, my initials, include my middle name, my birth month, or I don't know, a bunch of numbers. So let's create that list first. We could either use the entire list when we're working around this list, or make this simple by assigning a name to it. So instead of doing that, we'll just assign a simple name to it and assign the entire list just like this. Of course, it already understood what my list is, so we are now able to print the entire list by using that my list variable name. Okay, so another thing I told you before is whenever we're using the list, they are following a certain sequence. So whatever that's in the front will be automatically understood as the first item, second item, third item. So it knows the order. We can measure first the entire length of my list by using this len function. So it's basically just counting the number of the items that are included in this list. What we can also do is to ask if a certain item is indeed in the list. We're asking if Jen is in my list. It's going to give us the Boolean result. So yes, Jen is in the list, so we are seeing the true. Of course, it's not going to say true in this case because we don't have the Lee item there. Okay, another thing we could do whenever we're working on a list is to indicate a index number to print that item, that particular item in the list. So one thing to note is the index starts with number 0, not number 1. So here, what I'm asking you to do is to put the 0 index to print the first item in the list. So yes, the first item was Jennifer, and it's throwing that out because we're using that index number 0. So you might be confused. Like, let's say I want to print the 5th index. What it's going to give us is the number 7. So is 0, first, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's why it's giving us the last number if we ask for the 5th index. Okay, here I just want to give you some information here. So I was letting you know, the list is somewhat different. We didn't have X. Let me just get rid of that. Okay, so this is the list that we were working on. And as you just saw, when we say index 0, it gave us the first item, Jennifer. So think of it this way. So this is the entire list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items within the list. And this right here is the exact place for index 0. And then here is the actual place for index number 1. So indexes exist between 2 different items. So let me just finish writing the index numbers for each positions. So although we conveniently said this list has 6 different items, this is how the computer will actually perceive the 6 different indices. So when we ask for print index number 0, it'll refer to the place right here and then automatically print the item, whatever that's right after that index 0. If we say index 1, it's the item that appears next to number 1. And let's find out later what it's going to print if we ask it to print index number 6, because obviously we don't have any item after the index number 6. Let's see. Going back, as I promised, let's ask what is the 6th index in our list. And here, as expected, it's throwing us an index error because, as you can see here, the list index is out of range. So although there are 6 different items there, the list starts from 0 and goes until 5, and that's the entire range of the index for this list. So that's one thing that you have to be mindful. Never count the number of the items, and just be mindful that the index starts before the first item, and it's called the index number 0. You can also find out the ranges. So let's say from range 0 to 2, it'll say the first 2 items, which is Jennifer and Jen, according to the list. Or yeah, you can do whatever. From index 2 to 4, it's gonna give us the following items. Another characteristic of the list type of object is we can do concatenation, which means, well, adding 2 different, or adding, or what's the best way? Adding 2 different lists into one single list. What does that mean? My list, let's say I want to add my brother's name, like David and Dave. Here we are using the plus operator. Let's see what it does. So it concatenates 2 lists that I mentioned. And now we have this full list with the 2 added items. So the plus sign does that job. All right. Or let's say I want to add some more, like red and blue. You can see that's also added to the initial list. Okay. All right, so moving on, we will start working on my dictionary. Let's assign a variable name, my dictionary, and let's say we want to know the name of the person. It's Jennifer, and the age of the person is 36. Here, what we're doing is we're actually creating that dictionary. What this does is, let's say we're curious about what value is assigned for the key name. It's going to give us that value, Jennifer. And then age, it's going to give us my age. Let's see if writing the value, it's throwing a key error because we always have to ask the key to get the value within that dictionary. It's just like how we work with regular dictionaries. Let's say we want to add some more items or add more combinations within the dictionary. Like I also want to indicate my gender. And sorry. How we do that is to write the equation mark to assign a value. Here we are assigning a value called female. So what we're doing here is to add a new pair to the existing dictionary. Let's see if that worked. Yep, it's working, and we have this new pair introduced. You can also modify. Let's say 1 year has passed and I aged and I have become 37. We can also do that and we can find out that it worked. The age has changed from 36 to 37. So we can actually overwrite, or even delete something. Like I no longer want to include gender in my dictionary. So I do that and let's see. Yep, it's working. It's not showing the gender anymore. And I can also do something like asking if Jennifer is in my dictionary. As I said, it's throwing false because we don't want to work with the value when we're working on dictionaries. We want to rather work with the key, which is name, age, or gender. Let's see if that works. Yep, it's going to throw us true because we always want to work with the key value, key objects whenever working with the dictionary. I mean, it's easy to understand because like in English dictionaries, let's say, we refer to the word, we look for the word to look for the definition. We rarely want to search by writing the definition of a certain word to see where it is. So there's that logic there. Yep, so some other easy things we could do to check if it's indeed indicated as dictionary according to Python. Yes, that's true. And something like checking the type of a certain key, and it's letting us know that it's a string variable. Yeah, so those are the things that we could do, and that's the end of this lesson where we covered the Python objects, operators, and some Jupyter functions. So I'll see you in the next lesson. Thank you.